12 Angry Men tells the story of a jury that is deciding whether or not to convict a young man of murder, but the point of the movie has nothing to do with whether the young man is innocent or guilty. The point is that the actions of just one person trying to do the right thing can have a big impact. We're talking all about it this week in Caden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. Aside from just a few scenes, the bulk of this movie takes place in one room. So how did it manage to become one of the most famous movies of all time? There's lots to point to here. There's great camera work, performances, and dialogue.
Take a look at this knife. It's a very unusual knife. Aren't you asking us to accept a pretty incredible coincidence?
I'm just saying a coincidence is possible.
And I say it's not possible.
Where did that come from?
But the main thing I want to highlight is how the story quickly introduces us to 12 distinct characters, and then allows the rest of the narrative to continue building on those characters. When it comes to the legal case they're discussing, we as the audience have no real stake in it. We don't know the accused as a character, there were never any scenes showing the trial or the crime. Which is such an interesting twist because in most legal dramas, our main characters are the lawyers or the defendants or someone in the actual case. The story naturally has tension because the results will directly affect the characters. But here, our characters are the jury, and juries are specifically intended to be impartial, meaning they also don't have any stake in the case. So, with every twist and turn presented in their deliberation, the tension doesn't come from the details of the case. The tension comes as we watch these characters slowly, one by one, do one of the hardest things it is for a human being to do: to see themselves clearly. These characters, some easier than others, all eventually choose to evaluate their own biases and change their perspective. In the beginning, most of the jurors think this is a cut and dry case. One of them even thinks he'll be able to get out in time to go see the ball game he has tickets to.
All those voting guilty, please raise your hands. Those voting not guilty? One. Right.
Boy, oh boy, there's always one.
The one holdout is juror number 8. And does he have some big reason why he's voting not guilty? Not really.
I want to ask you something. Do you believe his story?
I don't know whether I believe it or not. Maybe I don't.
So how come you vote not guilty?
Well, there were 11 votes for guilty. It's not easy to raise my hand and send a boy off to die without talking about it first.
It's explicitly stated that for this case, if the defendant is guilty, he will automatically receive the death penalty. He's an 18-year-old boy that is a minority and grew up in a part of town the others refer to as a slum. Juror 8 admits that he doesn't know if the boy is innocent or guilty, so he simply wants to talk about it more before making a hasty decision. And a lot of the other jurors are frustrated that they can't get out early to get back to their normal lives. They seem to forget or not care that their decision could end someone's life, until juror number 8 tries to convey the gravity of the decision.
I honestly think the guy's guilty. Couldn't change my mind if you talked for 100 years.
I'm not trying to change your mind. It's just that we're talking about somebody's life here. We can't decide it in 5 minutes, supposing we're wrong.
Supposing we're wrong.
By the end of the movie, one last spoiler alert here, the entire jury unanimously votes not guilty. So how do the rest of the jurors reverse their decision? Let's look at a few moments where these characters were forced to take a look in the mirror. The first person to join juror number 8 is juror 9, the elderly man. At first, juror 9 respects that 8 had the courage to stand up to the ridicule and scrutiny of the rest of the group, but there's a particular moment in which his perspective comes into play. At the center of the case is the testimony of another elderly man. The jurors have pointed out several things that call the testimony into question, but some people are wondering why the witness would exaggerate his testimony. Juror 9 then says something that might seem far-fetched.
I think I know this man better than anyone here. Nobody knows him. Nobody quotes him. Nobody seeks his advice after 75 years. Gentlemen, that's a very sad thing to mean nothing.
And when someone asks, how would you know, we realize this elderly man feels the exact same way.
That's the most fantastic story I've ever heard. How can you make up a thing like that? What do you know about it?
Several of the jurors bring prejudice into the room, but nobody is so obviously racist as juror 10.
Listen, I've lived among them all my life. You can't believe a word they say. You know that. I mean, they're born liars.
Only an ignorant man can believe that.
When he finally lets loose and goes on a xenophobic rant, the other jurors react in an interesting way.
They don't need any real big reason to kill someone either. No, sir. You know what I mean? Violent. Where are you going? As much to them as it does to us. Look, I'm the first one to say that. I've known a couple who were okay, but most of them, it's like they have no feelings. They can do anything. Know it. I know all about them. I'm speaking my piece, and you...
Now sit down and don't open your mouth again.
The effect is not only that they decline to give him attention, but that he is allowed to expose his own flaws. It becomes apparent that he doesn't care about the facts of the case at all, and would have voted guilty just because of his preconceived notions. We then have a reversal of this shot, where Juror 11 is no longer standing, but ends up sitting at this table alone. His back is now turned as the rest of the group goes back to the table. He is metaphorically cast out by his fellow jurors and forced to acknowledge his behavior. So the next time he's asked for his vote, do you think he's guilty? He just shakes his head. And the very last domino to fall is Juror 3. Out of all the 12 angry men here, he is probably the angriest. We get a clue early on about what kind of baggage Juror 3 is bringing to this case.
It's these kids, the way they are nowadays.
He complains about the younger generation saying that they have no respect anymore. We then find out that he's had a falling out with his own son.
I said, I'm going to make a man out of you if I have to break you in two trying. When he was 16, we had a fight. Hit me in the jaw. He's a big kid. I haven't seen him for 2 years.
And despite the fact that every single other juror has decided to vote not guilty, he wants to cling to what he thinks is right.
I don't care whether I'm alone or not. It's my right.
It's your right.
He wants to believe that the accused, who he doesn't even know, would kill his father because it's the only way he can justify why his own son left. That there's something wrong with this younger generation and it has nothing to do with his parenting.
You lousy bunch of bleeding hearts. You're not going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion. Rotten kids, you work your life out.
He wants to believe that the proof is right here in this case. But if he admits the boy could be innocent, he might have to confront the idea that he's also responsible for losing his son.
No. Not guilty.
But here's the important part of the story. We all have to realize that there will probably come a time when we are juror number 3. There might come a time when we are tempted to render judgment in a situation where we don't have all the facts. Or worse, when we allow our deeply held perceptions to override logic and compassion. And we'll have to realize that when we do this, we contribute to a more hostile society. And we might be tempted to think, well, I may not be juror number 8, but at least I wouldn't be juror 3. But the story warns us about indifference too. Juror 7 has to face up to the decision that he can't even articulate why he's voting the way he is because he's too occupied with getting to that baseball game. Juror 12 has to confront the fact that he just does what everyone else tells him to do, because he's refused to do the difficult work of actually thinking about the case and making a choice. The reason Juror 8 is the hero of the story is not because he saves an innocent boy from a guilty conviction. We actually never find out if the jury is right, and we never will. But Juror 8 represents the type of person each of us would want on the jury if our fate was being decided. Somebody that takes a stranger's situation seriously, that wants to consider all the facts, that is truly giving you the benefit of the doubt because they understand that someone is innocent until proven guilty. And the reason the story becomes a hopeful one in the end is that most, if not all of the people that leave that room in the end, leave with a changed perspective. And it was all thanks to one person. And maybe in a future situation, they'll be juror number 8. Hopefully, if any of us ever encounter a situation like this, we'll take a moment to check our bias at the door. Hopefully, we'll choose compassion instead of prejudice, especially because we never know when we'll be the ones on the other side. And next week, we'll be taking a look at a movie that continues to deal with that theme of how we perceive others, but also how we perceive ourselves. Good Will Hunting tells the story of Will Hunting, who works as a janitor at MIT but is actually a mathematical genius. A professor soon discovers Will's abilities and tries to help him reach his potential, but Will continues to act out. He is sent to a bunch of renowned therapists, but outsmarts all of them. So that's when the professor turns to an old friend who now works at a community college. And here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. Pay attention to how the main characters have different ideas of what success and value looks like in life. In the beginning, who do you align with? Does that change by the end of the story? What scene stood out to you the most and why? Was a specific character having a realization in that scene? What was it? And how do you like them apples? So let's chat about 12 Angry Men in the comments, and I'll see you back here next week to discuss Good Will Hunting. If you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.